Look at your hands. The bones inside them, the way your fingers move, the warmth of your blood. Everything about your body exists because of a rock that fell from space 66 million years ago. Without that asteroid, you wouldn't be here. Nothing like you would ever have existed. Here is something that should keep you awake, or maybe help you drift off to sleep, depending on how you think about it. Your entire evolutionary lineage, every ancestor stretching back millions of years, exists only because of a random cosmic event. A rock the size of a mountain hit the wrong planet at the wrong time. Or maybe it was the right time, because that asteroid didn't just end an era, it created one. It cleared the board and let our distant ancestors rise from the shadows. Every human who has ever lived owes their existence to that moment of destruction. If you are settling in for sleep tonight, this is the kind of deep time mystery that puts everything in perspective. Your problems, your worries, your plans. They're part of a story that started with cosmic violence and continues through you. Subscribe and stick around to understand why this asteroid matters so much to human evolution. You need to understand what the world looked like before it hit. 66 million years ago, Earth was dominated by dinosaurs. And I don't mean they were common. I mean they were everywhere, in every niche, ruling every ecosystem. Dinosaurs had been the dominant land animals for over 150 million years. To put that in perspective, our entire lineage, from the first primates to modern humans, spans only about 65 million years. Dinosaurs ruled 3 times longer than we've even existed. They weren't just successful, they were spectacularly diverse. Huge, long-necked sauropods, armored ankylosaurs, horned ceratopsians, swift raptors, tyrant kings with teeth like daggers. Dinosaurs had evolved to fill every ecological role you can imagine, and mammals. We were there too, but we were small, mostly nocturnal, hiding in burrows and trees, coming out only when the dinosaurs slept. For 150 million years, mammals lived in the shadows, unable to compete with the ruling reptiles. The largest mammals during the age of dinosaurs weighed maybe 10 or 15 kilograms, about the size of a badger. That was as big as we could get while sharing the planet with dinosaurs. They filled all the large animal niches. There was no room for us to grow. Think about what that means. For longer than mammals have existed in their current forms, we were trapped, limited, held down by creatures that had arrived first and claimed the best real estate. Evolution isn't always about being the best. Sometimes it is about being first. And then, 66 million years ago, everything changed in an instant. An asteroid roughly 10 to 15 kilometers across, about the size of Mount Everest, struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear bombs. The rock was traveling at roughly 20 kilometers per second. That is fast enough to cross the continental United States in about 4 minutes. When it hit, it didn't slow down gradually. It stopped almost instantaneously, converting all that motion into heat and pressure. The impact created a crater 180 kilometers wide and 20 kilometers deep. The Chicxulub crater, named after a nearby town, is still there today, buried under sediment but visible in gravity measurements. The scar remains 66 million years later. In the first seconds, everything within 1,000 kilometers was vaporized. Rock turned to plasma. The air itself ignited. A wall of superheated gas expanded outward at hundreds of kilometers per hour, incinerating everything in its path. The impact threw billions of tons of rock into space. Some of this debris fell back to Earth, all around the globe, heating the atmosphere as it re-entered. The sky rained fire. Forests ignited on every continent. The world burned. The dust and soot that rose into the atmosphere blocked sunlight for months, perhaps years. Temperatures plummeted. Plants couldn't photosynthesize. The base of the food chain collapsed. Animals that survived the initial impact faced a long, cold, dark winter without food. 75% of all species on Earth went extinct. Not just dinosaurs, though they got the headlines, but countless plants, marine animals, flying reptiles, and yes, many mammals too. This was one of the worst mass extinctions in Earth's history. The dinosaurs that had ruled for 150 million years were gone. Not slowly, over millions of years of gradual decline, but suddenly, catastrophically, completely. One day they dominated the planet. A geological instant later, they were fossils. Well, not quite completely. Birds are dinosaurs, the only lineage that survived the impact. When you see a sparrow or a chicken, you are looking at a dinosaur. But the giant reptiles, the T-Rexes and Triceratops, the ruling dynasty, they were finished. And in the aftermath, in the devastated world that remained, something extraordinary began to happen. Mammals started to grow. Within a few 100,000 years, an eye blink in geological time, mammals evolved to fill the niches that dinosaurs had vacated. The ceiling that had held us down for 150 million years was gone. Suddenly, there was room. Room to grow larger. Room to become predators, room to climb into trees and develop grasping hands, room to become us. This is the story of the asteroid that reset human evolution. Not because it hit us, we didn't exist yet, but because it cleared the way for us to eventually exist. It is a story about catastrophe and opportunity, about extinction and emergence, about the cosmic accidents that made us possible. Let me take you through what happened in the aftermath. The recovery from the impact took millions of years, but it happened in recognizable stages. Understanding these stages helps us see how the catastrophe led, eventually, to us. In the first years after impact, the survivors were mostly small, generalist species, animals that could eat many different things, that didn't need much food, that could shelter from the harsh conditions. Exactly the kind of animals mammals had been for millions of years. Our ancestors were perfectly suited to survive. Small bodies that needed little food, nocturnal habits that helped in a world with blocked sunlight, omnivorous diets that let them eat whatever remained. The traits that had kept us small now kept us alive. The dinosaurs, ironically, were victims of their own success. Large bodies needed lots of food. Specialized diets meant limited options. Many were cold-blooded or had high metabolic needs. When the ecosystem collapsed, they had no backup plan. Within about 1 million years of the impact, still very fast by evolutionary standards, mammals had begun to fill the emptied niches. We see fossils of dog-sized mammals, then pig-sized, then cow-sized. The great mammalian radiation had begun, and crucially, some mammals took to the trees. In the warm forests that eventually recovered, our ancestors began climbing. They developed grasping hands for gripping branches, forward-facing eyes for judging distances, larger brains for navigating three-dimensional environments. These tree-dwelling mammals were the first primates. Not quite monkeys yet, more like lemurs or tarsiers, but they were on the path that would eventually lead to apes, to hominids, to humans, a path that only existed because dinosaurs no longer blocked it. Here is something worth contemplating. If the asteroid had missed Earth, if it had arrived a few hours earlier or later and sailed past into space, dinosaurs might still rule the planet. There is no reason to think they would have declined on their own. Dinosaurs weren't declining before the impact. They were thriving. New species were still evolving. Ecosystems were stable, if not for that random rock from space. Dinosaurs might have continued for another 100 million years, or forever, and mammals would have remained small, nocturnal, marginal. There would have been no primates, no apes, no humans. Whatever intelligent life eventually evolved, if any did, would have been utterly unlike us. Perhaps descended from dinosaurs themselves. This is why the asteroid matters so profoundly. It wasn't just a catastrophe, it was a reset button. It cleared away the winners of the previous era and gave new contestants a chance. Without that reset, we never would have gotten our turn. Let me tell you about some of the evidence for this story. How do we know what happened 66 million years ago? The detective work that uncovered this ancient catastrophe is itself a fascinating tale. For a long time, scientists didn't know what killed the dinosaurs. Various theories were proposed: climate change, disease, volcanic eruptions, competition with mammals, gradual decline. The extinction was mysterious, debated, unsolved. Then, in 1980, a father-son team changed everything. Luis Alvarez, a physicist, and Walter Alvarez, a geologist, were studying rock layers in Italy. They found something strange: a thin layer of clay at exactly the boundary between the age of dinosaurs and the age of mammals. This clay layer contained unusually high levels of iridium, an element rare on Earth's surface, but common in asteroids. The iridium was 30 times more concentrated than normal. Where had it come from? The Alvarezes proposed a radical hypothesis. The iridium came from an asteroid impact. The impact threw iridium, rich dust, into the atmosphere, where it spread globally before settling. The thin clay layer marked the moment of impact, preserved in rock around the world. The scientific community was skeptical. An asteroid killing the dinosaurs. It sounded like science fiction, but the evidence kept accumulating. The iridium layer was found at sites on every continent, always at the same geological boundary, always with the same strange composition. Other clues emerged: shocked quartz, crystals deformed by enormous pressure, the kind only found at impact sites or nuclear test grounds. Tiny glass spheres called tektites formed when molten rock was thrown into the air and solidified soot from global wildfires. But where was the crater? An asteroid big enough to cause global extinction should have left an enormous scar for years. Scientists searched. Then, in 1991, they found it buried under the Yucatan Peninsula, hidden by 66 million years of sediment. The Chicxulub crater was exactly the right size, in exactly the right rock type, at exactly the right age. The case was closed. An asteroid had killed the dinosaurs. The impact hypothesis went from radical idea to scientific consensus. Recent research has added even more detail. We now know the asteroid hit at a particularly bad angle, maximizing the debris thrown into the atmosphere. We know it struck rocks rich in sulfur, creating acid rain that poisoned the oceans. The impact was almost perfectly calibrated for destruction. Let me tell you more about what those first days and weeks after impact were like. The sequence of disasters is almost too terrible to contemplate, yet understanding it helps us appreciate the severity of what happened. In the first few minutes, the impact created a pressure wave that flattened everything for hundreds of kilometers. Animals were killed by the shock wave alone, their internal organs ruptured by the sudden pressure change. Death came faster than they could perceive it. The heat pulse came next. The fireball at ground zero reached temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. The thermal radiation spread outward, igniting fires across most of North America within the first hour. Animals caught in the open were incinerated where they stood. Then came the earthquakes. The impact transferred so much energy into Earth's crust that seismic waves circled the globe multiple times. Magnitude 10 or 11 earthquakes, bigger than any earthquake in recorded human history, shook every continent. Tsunamis followed, walls of water hundreds of meters high radiated from the impact site into the Gulf of Mexico and beyond. Coastal areas around the Atlantic were scoured clean. Marine ecosystems were disrupted as far away as Africa and Europe. Within hours, the debris that had been blasted into space began falling back to Earth. Billions of tons of molten rock re-entered the atmosphere all around the planet simultaneously. The friction heated the upper atmosphere to oven-like temperatures. Scientists call this the broiler hypothesis. The thermal radiation from all that falling debris might have been enough to literally cook animals alive. Anything that couldn't find shelter in water, in burrows, in caves, may have died from the heat alone. The fires that followed burned for months. Forests across multiple continents were reduced to ash. The smoke and soot that rose into the atmosphere combined with the impact dust to block sunlight. Photosynthesis essentially stopped. In the oceans, the acid rain created by sulfur. Rich rocks at the impact site began dissolving the shells of marine organisms. Entire food chains collapsed as the tiny creatures at the base of the marine ecosystem died. The seas became graveyards. The darkness lasted for months, perhaps a year or more. During this time, temperatures plummeted. The impact winter was harsh enough to kill many tropical species outright. Plants that survived the fires couldn't grow without sunlight. And yet, through all of this, some life survived. The key was finding refugia, places protected from the worst effects. Deep ocean organisms were shielded from the surface chaos. Burrowing animals escaped the heat and cold. Freshwater systems retained some stability. The recovery, when it came, was slow but inexorable. Within a few years, fern spores, which can survive harsh conditions, began sprouting in the devastated landscape. Ferns are pioneer plants, the first to return after disasters. For a while, Earth was a fern world. Slowly, other plants followed. Forests began to regrow, though they were different forests than before. The ecosystems that emerged were simpler, dominated by generalists that could exploit the empty niches. Specialists, the finely adapted species, had mostly died, and in those recovering ecosystems, mammals began their rise. Free from dinosaur competition, they grew larger with each passing generation. The ecological space that opened was vast, and mammals evolved rapidly to fill it. We've even found fossils from the day of impact. A site in North Dakota called Tanis preserves fish killed by the impact's shockwave, their gills clogged with debris that fell from the sky. We can see the moment of catastrophe frozen in stone. Let me tell you about what this means for understanding evolution. The asteroid impact challenges some of our assumptions about how evolution works and what determines which species succeed. We often think of evolution as gradual improvement. Better, adapted species outcompeting less adapted ones. Survival of the fittest progress toward greater complexity and capability. The asteroid impact shows that is not always how it works. Dinosaurs weren't outcompeted by mammals. They were killed by a rock from space. It had nothing to do with which group was better or fitter. It was random, catastrophic, external. The survivors weren't the best, adapted. They were the lucky. This introduces a concept called contingency into evolutionary history. Contingency means that accidents matter, that history could have gone differently, that the world we see isn't the inevitable outcome of natural laws, but the result of specific, often random events. The paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould famously argued that if you could replay the tape of life, you'd get different results each time. The asteroid impact is a perfect example. If it had missed, if it had hit a few hours later, everything would be different. Let me elaborate on this idea of contingency, because it is crucial for understanding what the asteroid impact means for our existence. The philosopher John Rawls talked about the veil of ignorance, imagining designing a society without knowing what position you'd occupy in it. Evolution is like that, but on a cosmic scale. No species knows in advance whether it will succeed or fail, flourish or go extinct. The dinosaurs didn't know an asteroid was coming. Our ancestors didn't know they would eventually inherit the Earth. If we could run the experiment of life on Earth multiple times, with slightly different starting conditions each time, we'd get different results. Maybe no complex life at all. Maybe intelligent life arising from different ancestors entirely. Maybe something we can't even imagine. The fact that we exist, that conscious beings who can contemplate their own existence emerged on this particular planet, is not evidence that such beings were inevitable. It might just be evidence that we happen to be here to ask the question. This is sometimes called the anthropic principle. We can only observe universes capable of producing observers. We can only ask questions about evolutionary histories that produced question askers. Our existence proves something happened, but not that it was likely. The asteroid impact is a perfect illustration. We wouldn't be here to discuss it if it hadn't happened. But that doesn't mean it was destined to happen, or that human-like intelligence was destined to evolve. We're products of accident, not destiny, and yet here we are. Against all probability, through an unlikely chain of events stretching back billions of years, consciousness emerged on this small planet, orbiting an ordinary star. We can contemplate the universe that created us. That is remarkable. This is humbling. We like to think we're here because we're special, because evolution was moving toward us, because intelligence and consciousness are inevitable outcomes. But the evidence suggests otherwise. We're here because of a lucky rock, or maybe unlucky rock, depending on your perspective. Unlucky for the dinosaurs, certainly, but lucky for the small furry creatures hiding in burrows who suddenly had a world to inherit. Lucky for us. Let me take you forward in time. After the impact, after the recovery, after mammals began their great radiation. What happened next? How did that devastated world eventually produce us? The first primates appeared within a few million years of the impact. They were small, nocturnal, insect-eating creatures. They lived in trees and had the beginnings of the traits we associate with primates: grasping hands, forward-facing eyes, relatively large brains. Let me tell you about how recent discoveries have refined our understanding of the extinction event. Science doesn't stand still, and new evidence continues to sharpen the picture of what happened 66 million years ago. For decades, scientists debated whether the asteroid alone caused the extinction or whether massive volcanic eruptions in India, the Deccan Traps, contributed. The volcanoes were erupting before, during, and after the impact, releasing enormous amounts of gas and ash. Current evidence suggests the asteroid was the primary killer, but the volcanoes may have weakened ecosystems before the impact and prolonged the recovery afterward. It might have been a 1-2 punch, stressed ecosystems hit by cosmic catastrophe. Recent drilling into the Chicxulub crater has revealed new details about the impact itself. The rock core shows melted granite mixed with seawater, evidence of the enormous energy released. It shows the rapid infilling of the crater in the hours and days after impact. Scientists have even found traces of the asteroid itself in the crater, teeny fragments of the original rock that survived vaporization. Analysis shows it was a carbonaceous chondrite, a type of asteroid containing organic compounds and water. The timing has been refined too. Modern radiometric dating puts the impact at exactly 66,038,000 years ago, with an uncertainty of just a few thousand years. We know almost precisely when our evolutionary opportunity began. Fossils found around the world confirm the suddenness of the extinction. Below the iridium layer, diverse dinosaur fossils. Above it, nothing but a few bird species. The transition is sharp, clear, unmistakable. Life changed virtually overnight. In the same rock layers, we find the first evidence of mammalian diversification. Teeth showing new dietary adaptations. Bones getting larger. evolutionary experiments beginning almost immediately as the ecological space opened up. The precision of this evidence is remarkable. We can trace our evolutionary history through rock layers, seeing exactly how our ancestors responded to the catastrophe that made their future possible. Over the next 60 million years, primates diversified and spread. Some stayed small and nocturnal, like modern lemurs. Others became larger, more social, more intelligent. The line that would lead to us developed in Africa. Around 6 or 7 million years ago, our ancestors split from the ancestors of chimpanzees. We don't know exactly why. Climate change might have forced some populations into open woodlands where walking upright had advantages, or it might have been random drift. The hominid line, the one leading to us, experimented with upright walking, with tool use, with larger brains. Many species came and went. Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Neanderthals. We're just the latest, not necessarily the last. Let me tell you more about how the post-impact world shaped our ancestors specifically. The traits that define us as humans, our large brains, our social nature, our upright posture, all trace back to adaptations that emerged in the world the asteroid created. The first primates were small, nocturnal insectivores. But as forests recovered and diversified after the impact, primates found opportunities to expand. Some became fruit eaters, following the seasonal availability of food through the canopy. Eating fruit requires remembering where trees are and when they bear fruit. It requires recognizing ripe versus unripe fruit. It requires navigating complex three-dimensional environments. All of these demands favored larger brains. Living in groups also favored intelligence. Primates increasingly lived in social groups where relationships mattered, who was allied with whom, who could be trusted, who might betray you. This social complexity drove brain evolution. The forests themselves were products of post-impact evolution. The flowering plants that dominate modern forests diversified enormously after the dinosaur extinction. Primates and flowering plants essentially evolved together, each shaping the other. Around 34 million years ago, climate change transformed African forests. Cooling and drying created more open woodlands and grasslands. Some primates stayed in the shrinking forests. Others, our ancestors, adapted to the edges. These edge-dwelling primates faced new challenges. They needed to cross open ground between forest patches. Standing upright, let them see over tall grass, spot predators, and carry food or infants while traveling. The hands freed by upright walking could manipulate objects, could make tools, could carry things over distances. The shift to bipedalism, caused by climate changes in a post-impact world, opened the door to everything distinctly human. Tool use created new selection pressures. Better tool, makers survived better. But making good tools requires planning, spatial reasoning, fine motor control, all brain-intensive activities. Tools and brains co-evolved, each driving the other. Larger brains require more energy. Meat provides concentrated energy tool. Using hominids could access meat more effectively, scavenging carcasses, hunting small game, eventually hunting large prey. Our ancestors became increasingly carnivorous, cooking food made possible by fire, which was controlled perhaps 500,000 years ago, made meat even more digestible, releasing more energy. Cooking might have been essential for the final expansion of human brain size. Language emerged somewhere along this journey. We don't know exactly when, but the social complexity, the need to coordinate hunts, the advantages of sharing information, all created pressure for better communication, and language transformed everything. With language came culture, the ability to transmit knowledge across generations without genetic inheritance. Stories, techniques, traditions, information that could accumulate, build on itself, create progress much faster than biological evolution alone. And all of this, the primates, the intelligence, the tools, the language, the culture, traces back through an unbroken chain to those small mammals that survived the asteroid impact. Without the extinction, none of it would have happened. Modern humans appeared around 300,000 years ago. That is 1/200th of the time since the asteroid impact. We're newcomers, recent arrivals, the latest chapter in a very long story that began with cosmic destruction. And none of it would have happened without that asteroid. No primates without the mammalian radiation. No mammalian radiation without the dinosaur extinction. No dinosaur extinction without Chicxulub. We are, quite literally, children of the impact. Here is something else to consider. The asteroid impact wasn't the only mass extinction in Earth's history. It wasn't even the worst. But it was the most recent major one. And it is the one that most directly shaped our existence. 250 million years ago, the Permian extinction killed 90% of all species, worse than Chicxulub. That extinction cleared the way for dinosaurs to rise. Without it, dinosaurs might never have dominated. And without dinosaurs, their extinction couldn't have opened the way for us. It is mass extinctions all the way down. Each catastrophe reshuffles the deck, gives new groups their chance, creates the conditions for future developments. Evolution isn't just about gradual adaptation, it is punctuated by disasters that reset everything. Some scientists call these events creative destruction. The extinctions destroy, yes, but they also create opportunities, create ecological space, create the conditions for new forms to evolve. Death on a massive scale enables new life. Let me tell you about some of the specific mammals that survived the impact and became our ancestors. Understanding them helps us appreciate just how improbable our existence really is. The earliest placental mammals, the group that includes us. We're probably small, nocturnal insectivores. They look something like modern shrews or hedgehogs, not impressive by dinosaur standards, but perfectly adapted for survival. Their small size meant they needed less food. Their varied diet meant they could eat whatever remained after the ecosystem collapsed. Their burrowing habits meant they could shelter from the heat and cold. Everything that had kept them marginal now kept them alive. One lineage of these survivors eventually gave rise to the primates. The earliest primates split from other mammals within a few million years of the impact. They were already developing the traits that would define their descendants: grasping hands, binocular vision, larger brains. Another lineage gave rise to the carnivores: dogs, cats, bears, and their relatives. Another produced the ungulates, horses, cattle, elephants, and the like. Another became the rodents, the most numerous mammals today. This diversification happened remarkably quickly in geological terms. Within 10 million years of the impact, most major mammal groups had appeared. The empty ecological space was filled within a fraction of the time dinosaurs had ruled. Scientists call this kind of rapid diversification an adaptive radiation. When ecological space opens up through extinction or access to new environments, evolution can proceed much faster than usual. The post-impact world was a laboratory of evolutionary experimentation. Many of those early experiments failed. Most mammal species from the post-impact era are now extinct. Evolution tried countless forms, and most didn't survive. The lineage leading to us is just one of many that emerged, and one of the very few that persisted. Every ancestor in our lineage, for 66 million years, had to survive and reproduce. If any one of them had died childless, you wouldn't exist. If any one of them had been killed by a predator, struck by disease, or failed to find a mate, the line would have ended. The probability of this chain remaining unbroken is almost incomprehensibly small, and it had to remain unbroken for every one of your ancestors, in every generation, for over 60 million years. Yet here you are, the chain held. This is strange kind of comfort, or maybe a strange kind of discomfort. Our existence depends on catastrophes. We're here because terrible things happened. The beauty and complexity of life on Earth has been built on foundations of mass death. Let me tell you about what the asteroid impact reveals about our place in the universe. We are not separate from cosmic events. We are products of them, shaped by forces that operate on scales we can barely comprehend. The asteroid that hit Earth was probably debris from the asteroid belt, the ring of rocky objects between Mars and Jupiter. Gravitational interactions with Jupiter can knock asteroids out of stable orbits, sending them careening through the inner solar system. So in a sense, Jupiter killed the dinosaurs. Or more precisely, Jupiter's gravity, acting on rocks billions of kilometers away over millions of years, eventually directed one of those rocks toward Earth. The cause and effect span astronomical distances and geological time, and Earth itself is part of this cosmic system. Our planet formed from the same disk of gas and dust that formed the Sunday and the asteroids. The rock that killed the dinosaurs and the rocks that make up our bodies come from the same primordial source. The atoms in your body were forged in stars that exploded billions of years ago. They drifted through space, condensed into planets, were processed through Earth's geology, and eventually assembled into you. You are made of star stuff, as Carl Sagan said, and you exist because other star stuff, the asteroid, hit this particular planet at this particular time. Your existence is woven into the fabric of cosmic history. You are not just an observer of the universe, you are a product of it, shaped by events stretching back billions of years. This is what it means to take the asteroid impact seriously. It is not just a fun fact about dinosaurs, it is a fundamental truth about who we are and why we're here. We are contingent beings, dependent on cosmic accidents, part of a universe that created us through violence and chance. Let me share some thoughts about what might happen in the future. Because the asteroid impact isn't just past history, it is a reminder of what could happen again. Asteroids still cross Earth's orbit. Most are small, burning up harmlessly in the atmosphere as shooting stars. But large ones exist too. Ones capable of regional or even global devastation. The question isn't whether another large impact will happen, but when. Scientists estimate that a Chicxulub-sized impact happens roughly every 100 million years on average. We're about 66 million years from the last one. That doesn't mean we're due. Asteroid impacts don't work on a schedule, but it means we're not safe. Smaller impacts happen more frequently. An asteroid 100 meters across could devastate a city. A kilometer-wide asteroid could cause global climate effects. These hit Earth every few thousand to few 100,000 years on human timescales. The threat is real. But here is the difference between us and the dinosaurs. We can see it coming. Modern telescopes scan the skies for potentially hazardous asteroids. We've identified most of the largest near-Earth objects. We'd likely have years or decades of warning before a major impact, and we might be able to do something about it. NASA's DART mission in 2020 successfully deflected an asteroid by crashing a spacecraft into it. The technology for planetary defense exists in principle. We're not helpless the way dinosaurs were. This is remarkable when you think about it. A species that exists only because of an asteroid impact might soon be able to prevent future impacts. We might be the first species in Earth's history capable of protecting life from cosmic catastrophe. Or we might fail. We might see an asteroid coming and be unable to stop it. We might be the next dinosaurs, successful, widespread, dominant, and then suddenly extinct. The universe doesn't owe us survival just because we're aware of the danger. But even if humans don't survive, something will. Life has bounced back from every mass extinction so far. Whatever survives us will inherit the Earth, just as we inherited it from the dinosaurs. The story will continue, with or without us. Let me bring this back to something more immediate. What does the asteroid impact mean for how we understand ourselves? For how we live our lives? One response is despair. We're accidents, random products of cosmic violence. Our existence has no purpose, no meaning, no necessity. We could just as easily not exist, and the universe wouldn't care. But there is another response: wonder, gratitude. We exist against astronomical odds. The specific chain of events that led to us is so improbable that it might as well be miraculous. We're here against all probability, and we can appreciate that we're here. The asteroid impact reminds us that existence is a gift, not a given. Every moment of consciousness, every experience of beauty, every connection with another person, these exist because of cosmic accidents that could have gone differently. They're precious because they're improbable. And there is something else. The asteroid impact connects us to deep time. When you understand that your existence depends on something that happened 66 million years ago, your perspective shifts, personal problems shrink. The scope of reality expands. You are part of something vast and ancient and ongoing. The same matter that formed the dinosaurs forms you. The same planet that witnessed their end witnesses your life. The same sun that shone on the Cretaceous world shines on you tonight. Think about the first mammal that crawled out from hiding after the impact winter ended. It couldn't have known that 66 million years later, its descendants would walk on the moon, paint masterpieces, compose symphonies, fall in love. It was just trying to survive another day, and you are that mammal's legacy. You are what became of that terrified creature, blinking in the dim sunlight of a devastated world. Everything that makes you human, your hopes, your fears, your capacity for wonder, descends from that moment of survival. That is something worth holding on to as you drift off to sleep tonight. You are the result of 66 million years of evolution, made possible by a cosmic catastrophe, carrying forward a lineage that refused to die. You are a survivor's descendant. You are here against the odds. The dinosaurs had their time. 150 million years of dominance. And then they were gone, victims of random cosmic violence, leaving only fossils and birds as their legacy. Now, it is our time. How long will it last? Another 66 million years, another 100. Or will something cut us short, an asteroid, a pandemic, a climate we've destabilized ourselves? We don't know. No species knows how long its chapter will be. But we know we're here now. We know we're conscious now. We know we can appreciate the strange, beautiful, violent story that made us possible. That is not nothing. That is everything. The asteroid that killed the dinosaurs is still out there. In a sense, its atoms dispersed through Earth's crust, its iridium layer marking a moment in rock around the world. We walk on it. We build with it. We're made of a planet that was once devastated by it, and we carry the memory of it. Not in our genes, but in our science, our stories, our understanding. We're the first species to know what killed the dinosaurs, the first to understand the cosmic violence that made us possible, the first to look back 66 million years and see our own origin story. That knowledge is power. The power to see ourselves clearly, the power to appreciate what we are, the power, maybe, to prevent the next catastrophe. The dinosaurs couldn't do any of this. We can. That is our gift and our responsibility. Let these thoughts settle into you as you drift towards sleep. The asteroid, the extinction, the mammals rising, the long, slow journey to consciousness and wonder, and you, here now, listening to this story that is also your story. Here is one final thought to carry with you into sleep. The atoms that make up your body have been on an incredible journey. They were forged in stars, scattered by supernovae, gathered into planets, and processed through billions of years of Earth's geology and biology. Some of those atoms were part of dinosaurs. The carbon in your cells might once have been part of a Tyrannosaurus or a Triceratops. Matter doesn't disappear, it transforms. The dinosaurs are literally part of you now, recycled through 66 million years of the biosphere, and some of those atoms came from the asteroid itself. The iridium layer is everywhere on Earth's surface, and iridium gets cycled through the environment like any other element. There are traces of the cosmic rock that killed the dinosaurs inside your body right now. You are, quite literally, made of stardust, dinosaur remains, and asteroid fragments. The violence that ended one era created the conditions for your existence and left its physical traces in your very cells. That is something to dream about. 66 million years ago, a rock fell from space and changed everything. It ended one world and began another. And that other world eventually produced a species that could understand what happened, could appreciate its own improbable existence, could tell stories about deep time. You are part of that species. You are part of that story. The asteroid that reset human evolution didn't just kill dinosaurs. It made you possible. You are the legacy of that cosmic violence. You are the meaning that eventually emerged from meaningless destruction. If that is not worth thinking about as you fall asleep, I don't know what is. Thanks for spending this time with me tonight, contemplating deep time and cosmic accidents, and the strange, beautiful contingency of existence. There are more mysteries to explore on this channel, more stories about where we came from and what we are. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time. Good night. Sleep well, and remember, you are here because a rock fell from space 66 million years ago. That is strange and wonderful and true. Dream about it.